Southern Sports Gumbo. We're going to be diving into the biggest games of Week 11. And to get started, we're going to give our player, team, and coach of the week. So I'll get things started on that front. I'm going to go player of the week. Give me Darian Mitza, the quarterback at Duke. Led his team to a 46-45 victory at Clemson. They're 4-1 in ACC play right now. He marched the Blue Devils down the field for a 94-yard game-winning drive and a two-point conversion with 40 seconds left to play. You know, that last drive, he was 6 of 8 for 83 yards. 4 of 4 on fourth down against Clemson, threw for 361, and then, threw 4 touchdown passes. So phenomenal game for Darian Mitza. They got the win over Clemson. And then my team of the week and my coach of the week are at the same program. That is the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Improved to 5-4, got their first SEC win of the season after a couple close games they've played here in the last few weeks. So shout out to the Bulldogs. Couple of shout outs to them individually. Kamario Taylor was named one of the conference players of the week in the SEC. He had 6 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown and was 2 for 5 and threw a touchdown pass. So shout out to Mississippi State and Coach Jeff Lebby this week. Kevin, who do you have for your team player and coach of the week?
Yeah, so my player of the week, I'm going to start there, goes to Tate Sindall from Oklahoma, the kicker from Oklahoma. He's been special teams player of the week in the SEC twice. Look, player of the week going to a special teams guy is not a norm, but Tennessee game he was very instrumental in building Oklahoma's momentum and throughout that game. He kicked 4 field goals, 3 over 50 yards, 2 55-yarders, and a 51-yarder. In the first half, he kicked 3 of those. And during that period, so they had a defensive touchdown in the first half, Oklahoma did, and their only other points were off his foot. And then in that same time frame, Tennessee had about 250 yards and really should have been ahead. But every time Oklahoma was in a chance to score, Sindall put points on the board for him, and that allowed them to take momentum into the second half and keep the momentum and get a win. So to me, he was the key in them getting that win on the road. Coach of the week goes to Rhett Lashley of SMU. So first time SMU has beat a top 10 team at Gerald Ford Stadium in Dallas, their own campus. They, way back in the day when they used to play at Texas Stadium, back in the 80s when they had Dickerson and James and those guys, they had some wins against top 10 teams. But this is the first time they've ever beat a top 10 team on campus. Rhett and the university agreed to a contract last week that makes him in the top 10 teams or top 10 coaches financially on his payout. And he repaid them this weekend with a big win, and they're still in contention in that ACC championship hunt. So definitely goes to him. Lastly, my team of the week would be Texas. Texas has been left for dead in this playoff scenario, and I'm one that put them in that dead category myself. They should have lost at Kentucky. They should have lost at Mississippi State. We're down 17 in that game in the fourth quarter. They showed resiliency in winning those 2 games. And then against Vanderbilt this past Saturday, played their most complete game of the year and won 34-31. Arch Manning had a great game. Their defense, the first 2.5 quarters was really good. Let them get out to a good lead. Vanderbilt did come back and have some chances. Pavia had a really good game if you look at his passing numbers. So, and I just referenced those things to, again, establish how well Texas played in this game. To me, it's their first full complete game that they've played all year. And I think you do have to put them back in that group now that is in contention for the playoffs. So, um, hats off to Sark and Texas, because I think now they are absolutely a factor. They play Georgia next weekend at Georgia, and that game's going to be very instrumental in what teams are still in that playoff hunt after that. Sweet Twitchy, what do you got for players, teams, coach of the week?
You're on mute, Sweets.
We might go on to the first game. It looks like he might be stuck now.
Yeah, well, let's jump to the first game. Let's go with Tulane at Memphis. Get us started on that one, Kevin.
Yeah, so this is a big game in the American Conference, and again, the whole group of five non-power four teams to go to the playoffs. First of all, Memphis has been very good at home. They're a 5.5 point favorite in this game. They beat Arkansas at home, came from behind, scored 17 unanswered to beat South Florida at home. I think this game will be Ryan Silverfield's national public coming out party that will put him in the name for a lot of jobs. I think he's already in those jobs, but I think it becomes more public. I would not be surprised to see Silverfield get that Arkansas job. So let's talk a little further, though, about why. So when you look at the breakdown of both teams are averaging over 400 yards of offense. But Memphis is averaging 37 points a game, where Tulane's averaging 26. Defensively, John Summerall at Tulane gets a lot of credit, being a defensive mind, and he has had good defenses at Tulane. But when you compare the two teams, Silverfield's defense is better than Tulane's this year. Silverfield and Memphis are giving up 346 yards a game, 51 in the country, and only 19 points a game, where Tulane's giving up a little over 400 and 25.5 points a game. So, and then when you look at third down conversion rates, Tulane has given up almost 44% of their third down possessions on defense, on the defensive side, to the offense, and Memphis is converting it at that same rate. Both are 43.6. Memphis is third in that third down conversion rate. No, excuse me, 23rd in third down conversion rate, where Memphis is 112th on defense. So I think that's a big significant stat in this one. And then also too, when you look at turnovers, Memphis is +7, Tulane is +1. So again, Memphis has done better on defense taking the ball away than Tulane. So when I look at all the categories there, penalties, another area Tulane has kind of struggled in this year. They're 121st at 67 yards a game. So I look at all those things, and and plus the home field advantage. I think you got to give Memphis the advantage in this game. If you break down players, both quarterbacks are dual threat guys. Tate Ratzlaff, that transfer from BYU, he's got 16 touchdowns on the year, total of about 2,200 yards. And then Brendan Lewis from Memphis, he's got right at 2,400 yards on the year and 18 touchdowns. So both those dual threat quarterbacks are the key to the offenses. So that's if you're looking at that aspect of it too. If you're just looking for individual players. So, but I like Memphis in the game. I like their defense better than Tulane's, and I like that turnover margin and the penalty piece, and then playing at home. I think Memphis covers the spread. It's a 5.5 point spread. Give me Memphis 31, Tulane 24. D-Mac, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. I really like this Memphis team. The +9 and the turnover margin is my favorite stat about this team. That's sixth in the nation. They don't commit a lot of penalties either. 31st in the nation at 45 yards a game. So love Memphis in this one. I'm going to go a 34-24 game. Memphis wins and covers the spread. What do you think, Sweets?
I got Memphis 38-27. I like Memphis simply because their ability to score in the red zone. They score in the red zone just under 98%, which is top 10 in the country. And as we know, getting down to that red zone, you've got to leave there with points, and Memphis does that almost 100% of the time. So, give me Memphis by 11 here, and they keep their playoff hopes alive with the win against Tulane.
Yeah, so that brings us to the Indiana Penn State game. Get us started on that one, Sweets.
Indiana, Penn State. We had it queued up here. This is a tale of two seasons for these two teams. Penn State was top 5 in the preseason, and they're now 3-5. Indiana was, I think they were ranked, but not highly ranked. But they're number 2 in the country now, 9-0. Fernando Mendoza is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He's got 26 touchdown passes, 25 touchdown passes, and he's thrown for over 2,100 yards. I think in this game, Indiana's offense is just too much for Penn State's defense. Penn State has been a train wreck even before Franklin was fired, and Allard got hurt, and things have not gotten better for them since those two things happened here. So I think Indiana's going to keep rolling here. I like them to beat Penn State handily. Give me Indiana 42, Penn State 14. What are your thoughts on this one, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been critical of Indiana this year because of a soft schedule. But I think Penn State fought as hard as they could last week in a rivalry game against Ohio State. I don't think they can come out with that same intensity this week. Indiana also leads the country in plus 12 in the turnover margin. So really good team. Indiana's playing great. I think the line is only 13.5. So I think the only people who are going to be happy this weekend are going to be the Hoosiers. I'm going to go 45-10 in this one. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, Indiana is going to be too much for them physically, talent-wise. They're a good team. Indiana, like your score, like Sweet. Give me Indiana 44-10, almost the same score you picked. I like Indiana a lot in this game. Look, Indiana's for real.
Yeah, so that brings us to the BYU Texas Tech game. This is the game that I'm most excited about outside of the SEC this week. BYU is sitting at 8-0, 5-0 in conference play. Texas Tech at 8-1 and 5-1 in conference play. This game to me pretty much sums up who's going to win the Big 12. The winner of this game, I think, wins the league. So right now, this is Texas Tech is a 10.5 point favorite in this game. Both of these teams are really pretty good on both sides of the field. Texas Tech's offense is scoring 43.6 points a game, good for third in the nation, and they're only giving up 13.2 points a game, good for fifth in the nation. BYU averaging 36 points a game, top 20 offense, and only giving up 17 points a game, so in top 15 defense. So these are two teams that both match up well. A good defense against a good offense on both sides of the field. You look at the turnover margin, both teams are top 10. Texas Tech's +8 in the turnover margin, BYU's +10. So two really good teams. I think this is going to come down to home field advantage a little bit for Texas Tech, playing in front of Red Raider Nation there. I do like Bear Bachmeier a lot, but I think he has his first freshman struggle game a little bit, playing on the road in such a big game. I'm going to go Texas Tech in this one. And I think they cover this one. I'm going to go 31-21. Well, they don't cover. They win by 10. You get beat by the hook. But I think a 10-point win for Texas Tech. They need this win more than BYU does. And this is going to be a really fun game to watch when they match up in the Big 12 championship in about a month. Sweets, who do you like in this one?
I'm gonna pick the upset here. I'm gonna take the hometown BYU Cougars here. I think Sataki's got those guys playing well. Bear Bachmeyer has been fantastic at quarterback. Defensively with Isaiah Glasker at linebacker, BYU is getting after it, and they score as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and take BYU with the upset on the road. BYU leaves Lubbock with a 34-30 win. What are your thoughts here, Kev?
Yeah, so I really like Tech in this game. Just the talent, they're playing at home. They have one loss in the conference, so they're going to play with a lot of urgency. I love the way BYU's coach. Sataki does a great job. I like the way they play defense, and I love what Bachmeyer's done at quarterback, and he's just a freshman. So I'm in agreement, DMAC, where you referenced that this is likely a preview of the Big 12 championship. I do agree with that. But I think this game being at home with so much on the line for Tech, I like them in this game. 38-21, I think Tech will roll. So I think that's going to be a good win for Tech.
That brings us to the Oregon-Iowa game. Get us started on this one, Kevin.
Yeah, so this is an interesting game. You know, number one, it's at Iowa. Number two, both defenses are really good. So Iowa's defense is second in the country with giving up 235 yards a game. Oregon's is fourth in the country, giving 239. So pretty much the same from what they give up. The interesting thing is, so Iowa's scoring 31 points a game this year, but they're only averaging a little over 300 yards a game, about 320 yards a game. So obviously they're getting good field position with their special teams and what their defense does. The strength of the matchup goes to Oregon on the offensive side with how they're moving the ball. They're ninth in the country on offense, 483 yards a game. Now, some of that goes to their schedule. You look at a team like Iowa and a team like Indiana, they finished, right around 300 yards of offense in that game. So when I look at this game, you've got to balance those stats out, and I think it comes down to a couple of key things. So let's talk third down conversions and let's talk red zone offense. So let's talk red zone offense against red zone defense first. So even though Iowa doesn't put a lot of yards up, again, they score. They score on 94% of their possessions in the red zone. Iowa is the worst in the country giving up Oregon is the worst in the country giving up points 100% of the time in the red zone. So I think that matchup heavily favors Iowa. If they get down in the red zone, they're going to score and capitalize on their points opportunities in a game where you've got two good defenses that are going to control this game and not give up a lot of points in a close game. So turnover margin, about the same, +5 on each side. When you look at third down defense, they're both good. Oregon, 30.3% on third down defense, so they're very good there. The matchup, I look at the Oregon side, the matchup to me that they've got to win is Dak Moore. I think Iowa's only giving up 85 yards rushing a game. Oregon's getting over 200 yards rushing. I think that'll kind of split in the middle. Oregon will probably end up with 120 yards rushing. The best athlete on this field is Dak Moore, the freshman from Oregon. Can Oregon contain him in the passing game? Can Iowa contain him? He's Oregon's leading receiver on the year, about 450 yards a game. And some of those games he hadn't played the full game because they've been ahead. So I think he's the key matchup for Iowa's defense and for Oregon's offense. You look at the key players in this game. Dante Moore for Oregon. He's completing 71% of his passes, right at 1,800 yards on the year, 19 touchdowns. So he's done very well. And then the Iowa running game is where they try to get their points. Their quarterback, he's just been real solid. He's got 900 yards passing on the season, but he's not done anything to take them over the top offensively. they've just been real solid. Not a lot of turnovers. Typical Oregon team, and they run the ball. They play and they capitalize when they get field position. And their running game is the key to their offense. So I combine all those things, and again, I go back to that red zone uh, offense and defense and that matchup in this. They're playing Oregon. I do think Oregon's defense will be able to slow, or I keep saying Oregon. Oregon and Iowa's getting me. So Iowa's defense will be able to slow Oregon down. And I really think in the physicality of this game, playing the game in Iowa, that red zone defense against Iowa's red zone offense is going to be the difference in this game. I think Iowa's going to upset Oregon. I'm going to go 24-21 in this game. I just think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Field position is going to matter, and taking advantage of your opportunities, and that's where I give the game to Iowa. Sweet, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to go opposite of you, Kev. I think that Oregon wins this game. I think they travel cross country, and I think the main reason they do is that they just have a little bit more talent than Iowa does. Iowa's a well-coached team. Kurt Ferenz always does a great job with them. They're always tough defensively. It's nice to see them scoring some points this year. They're averaging. It's funny that Oregon and Iowa are both averaging 31.2 points per game on offense, and they're both averaging 13.1 points given up on defense. So they're exactly the same. As something you don't see very often there. But I think at the end of the day, Oregon's got too many Jimmies and Joes for Iowa. I think they travel to Kinnick. They leave there with the win. I don't think it's going to be too high scoring, though. I'm going to say 24-17 Ducks. Where are you going with this one, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm rolling with the home team, the Hawkeyes in this one. You know, I look at how both of these teams played Indiana. And I know Iowa played them really early in the season, but Iowa contained their offense pretty well in this one. So I think Iowa's going to have success on defense. And if they get in position to score, I think this game heavily favors them. I'm going to go a 21-17 game. Iowa gets a win. So that brings us to Iowa State at TCU. Sweets, get us started on this one.
Go ahead and skip me here, guys. My thing just died. Give me 15 seconds. Go to the next one, D-Mac. I apologize.
Okay. No, you're good. That's going to take us to Wake Forest and Virginia. I'll get us going on this one here. Virginia is playing at home. They're a 6.5-point favorite in this one. Wake Forest is sitting at 5-3, so they're having a solid season for themselves. But Virginia's 8-1, playing for a chance to win the ACC this year. Virginia's offense is averaging 439 yards a game, which puts them in the top 30 in the nation. They're also scoring 36.5 points a game, puts them in the top 20. Their defense has been serviceable. 343 yards puts them in the top 45, and they're giving up 22 points a game, which puts them right around 50th. And then you look at this Wake Forest team. They're averaging about 375 yards a game, which puts them at 75th. They're only scoring 24 points a game. And then on defense, they're giving up about 200 or 325 yards a game, which puts them in the top 35, only giving up about 22 points a game. So something that Wake Forest is really good at is converting on third down. They're converting about 46% of the time. Virginia's defense, though, is only allowing opponents to convert at about 28%. So this is going to be a fun game to watch. Wake Forest, though, is not very good in the turnover margin at -3, and Virginia is +8. Chandler Morris is playing really well, over 2,000 passing yards for Virginia, 12 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, completing about 68% of his passes. And Jamari Taylor's got 11 touchdowns on the ground and about 700 yards. And name that you guys might remember, Robbie Ashford is the starting quarterback for Wake Forest, who he's not having a too great of a season. 1,300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, completing about 58% of his passes. They get a lot of their scoring and game done on the ground. But I'm going to lean Virginia in this one. I'm going to take Virginia. I'm going to go 38 17. Big win for Virginia at home. Keeps their playoff hopes alive and keeps them in, driver's seat for the ACC. Sweets, what do you have on this one?
I'll be short and sweet here. I like Virginia to win this one big. Wake Forest has struggled recently. They got bombed 42-7 last week against Florida State. Florida State hadn't won a game since September, I don't believe. So Wake Forest is really struggling. Virginia's still got something to play for here, and I think that they blow doors here. I like Virginia big. Let's go 42-14 Cavaliers. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, I'm going Virginia. I mean, they're playing at home, and I like Virginia at home. If you look at Wake Forest, they did take it on the chin to Florida State last week. They had won three in a row before that, but against really weak competition. Well, two games against weak competition. They beat Virginia Tech on the road, beat Oregon State on the road, who's a weak team. Had a big upset against SMU at home, and then lost to Florida State. I don't think offensively they can hang. And you mentioned Robbie Ashford. Sweets and I saw him play in Auburn when he was there. About seems like it's forever ago. I guess in 22, and he wasn't an effective quarterback. Saw him play last year when he came in the second half of the LSU game at South Carolina. Same thing, wasn't really that effective. And I don't see him putting a lot of points on the board in this game. So give me Virginia 31, Wake Forest 10.
Well, Sweets, you want to
All
go
right,
back
I'll
to Iowa State TCU?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do. I do. So TCU is a 6.5 point favorite in this matchup. TCU is 6-2. Iowa State's 5-4 on the year. TCU's the games at home. TCU won their last game against West Virginia 23-17 last weekend. Pardon me. Josh Hoover's got 2,300 yards passing on the season. And in his last game, he had 247 through the air with 24 of 39 with 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Eric McAllister has 727 yards through the air. So TCU is moving the ball through the air well. Iowa State has lost it says they've lost their last 4 games, including a 24-19 loss to Arizona State on Saturday. And they've struggled a lot due to their both their starting quarterbacks getting knocked out for the season. That hurts a ton. Not only that, but Rocco Beck just hasn't been as consistent as he was earlier in the year, um, as he was earlier in the year. Now is what I'm saying. Anyway, for this game, I like TCU to pull it out. I like TCU 27-17. I just think that they're just playing a little bit better ball than Iowa State right now, and Iowa State is just continuing to see that season, circle down the drain. What are your thoughts on this one, Kev?
Yeah, Iowa State was playing so well, and then, like you said, they've lost 4 in a row, including a loss to Colorado, who's not playing very well in that stretch. So going on the road to play a good TCU team is just not time to get momentum back. I thought the last 2 weeks playing at home, Iowa State would get wins simply because they were playing against teams that were banged up. And they were kind of in a good position there, and they lost both games. So I think TCU handles this one pretty easily. Give me TCU 38-17. Hoover's going to roll.
Yeah, I'm with both of you guys here. I like TCU a lot in this game. One of Iowa State's biggest problems on offense is they're in the red zone. They're only scoring about 77% of the time. They're leaving way too many points on the field. So give me TCU 38, Iowa State 24. So that brings us to the Cal Louisville game. Kevin, I think you've got this one, right?
Yeah. So, if you want to watch a game that might be entertaining in the middle of the day, I think this would be a good game to watch. It's at 7 o'clock at night. I said middle of the day, but 7 o'clock at night. You got Miller Moss, the quarterback for Louisville, and then the freshman Sagabo 2A from Cal, who's a really talented guy. He's got 2,200 yards passing. And I think that's the part that makes the game interesting if you just want to watch the game. When you break down the game, Louisville's good offensively. They're in the top 50 offense, but they're 11th defensively, only giving up 280 yards a game. And I just, when you look at Cal, they're in the 80s on both sides, 80s and 70s. I just don't see it as a good matchup for Cal to win this game from that standpoint. And then you look at Cal's offense is 89th on third down conversion, and Louisville's defense is 10th on third down conversion. So the matchup to me just does not favor Cal at all. And so I really lean Louisville in this game. Again, we got a lot of games this week that we feel pretty confident, and the spread's not going to be really that close. The spread in this one is 20.5. I don't know if Louisville covers the spread because that's a lot of points. I wouldn't bet against them, let me say that. But give me Louisville in this game, 35-17, with Cal scoring late to get it under the spread. But I just don't like Cal going on the road in this game against a good, well-rounded Louisville team that's good on both sides of the ball. What's your thoughts, Sweets?
Yeah, I'm with you, Kev. I like Louisville a lot here. They're 7-1. They still got everything to play for, including a playoff berth. They're right where they need to be in the ACC. They're scoring well. Brahms got that offense clicking on all cylinders, and defensively, they're only giving up 20.8 points a game, which is something that Louisville struggled to do in the past, is have consistent defensive help. So the fact that they're playing well on defense bodes well for them, and I think that they're probably the team to beat right now in the ACC for my money. I'm going to go ahead and take Louisville 42, Cal 21 here. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, I like Louisville in this game. The young quarterback at Cal has been really good from a passing yard standpoint, but he's thrown 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions this season. So I think turnovers play a factor in this game for the Cal offense. And Louisville gets it done 45-17. They cover the spread this week. So that brings us to our Florida State Clemson game. Sweet. So who do you like in this one?
I don't like either team in this one. They're both horrible. Listen. Florida State finally got off the schneid, beating up on Wake Forest last week, 42-7. The one thing they've been consistent at is moving the ball. They lead. They're number one in FBS with 510.5 yards a game. So it isn't offensively. That's not the reason why Florida State can't win ball games. Dabo, on the other hand, is struggling. He's having his worst season at Clemson so far, and he's starting to feel the heat a little bit. While I don't think he's on the hot seat, for somebody who's done as much as he has for that program and actually made them relevant again, for those fans to, Brian Kelly said the LSU fans were spoiled earlier in the year. No, the Clemson fans are spoiled. Clemson's won 2 national championships in the past, 10 years or so. They're spoiled. They're going to be really upset on Saturday, though, because Tommy Castellanos and Florida State is going to come in and beat them. They're going to beat them 42-27, and the Boo Birds will be louder in Little Death Valley come Sunday. What are your thoughts on this game, Kev?
So let me say I'm in a total agreement with you. I don't like to pick a winner in this game because both teams have been so inconsistent. I guess that's the best way to put it. I guess if I had to pick a team, I'm going to go with a home team with Clemson. I'm not sure why. Both teams, like I said, you don't know what you're going to get. But up until a week or so ago, Clemson looked good for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Florida State started the season well. Give me Clemson 27-24 because they're playing at home. I keep expecting them to rally and and do something They're up to 5 losses. They lose this game, they could get knocked out of a bowl very easily. D-Mac, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, Dabo showed a little passion again after the loss last week. Blasted officiating, went on a couple rants. I do I like Clemson in this one. Cade Klubnik has actually overall played a little better than I thought he would this year. He's got almost 2,000 passing yards, 13 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Um, tough to pick a team here too, but I'm going to roll with the home team 27-21. We all picked Clemson to score 27 this week. So if that hits, we may need a trip to Vegas for the three of us here pretty
There
soon.
you go.
We all picked
There you
Clemson
go.
in a game that none of us liked, so you probably better pick Florida State.
So that,
I took Florida State.
yeah, Sweets had had
Okay.
Florida State dominating
That's right.
Clemson.
That's right. So that saves your and I pick on Clemson. Then we can feel good about it.
Yeah. So that brings us to the last non-SEC game of the week. You've got Navy traveling to South Bend, Indiana to take on the Fighting Irish. This game is, I think, 26.5 points as we sit here right now. Navy's sitting at 7-1. They've played pretty good ball except for last week. The Notre Dame offense is averaging 462 yards a game, good for 17th. They're scoring 37 points a game, good for 14th. And their defense is finally coming around a little bit. They're giving up less than just under 20 points a game, which puts them in the top 30. Their run defense, though, has been kind of the bread and butter of that defense, only giving up 89 yards a game. Then you look at the Navy offense, 466 yards a game, 317 yards a game on the ground for number one in the nation. And then their defense is giving up 380, and they're giving up 24 points a game. Navy's fourth in the nation on third down offense, converting about 54% of the time. Notre Dame 66th in third down defense, allowing opponents to convert 38% of the time. So I think that, the Notre Dame defense is going to have to step up on third down. With how good they are against the run, I think that does lean in their favor a little bit. And then you look at the turnover margin, my favorite stat in college football. Notre Dame's fifth in the nation at +10 in the turnover margin. CJ Carr's playing phenomenal football, 2,000 passing yards, 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Jeremiah Love's got 894 yards on the ground, 11 touchdowns. I think he breaks the 1,000-yard mark this week. I'm going Notre Dame big in this one. Notre Dame still needs some style points to ensure they get into the college football playoff. And I know we have the selection show starting any minute as well. So give me Notre Dame 48, and let's go Navy 21. So 27-point win, just barely covers. Kevin, who do you like in this game?
I like Notre Dame a lot. I think they've gotten better since those first 2 games, and those first 2 games were against good teams. So, look, Navy didn't score 20 on North Texas, so I don't give them a chance to score 20 again this Notre Dame game. So I like Notre Dame 38. Navy will run the ball to keep some clock. 38-13, give me Notre Dame in this game. And they keep that push for the playoffs alive. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, Notre Dame wins big here. They just too much talent for the Naval Academy. Give me Notre Dame 42, Navy 14, and the calls for Marcus Freeman to leave Notre Dame to go to Baton Rouge get louder for some. So
yeah, that does
let's see what happens.
That solves a quarterback problem in Baton Rouge if you get CJ Carr down here with his old ball coach.
Absolutely. See, look, CJ Carr, he is one of the best sophomore younger quarterbacks in the country. I would absolutely. I think any team would take C.J. Carr next year and go fight for the championship.
Yeah, so that brings us to our SEC games. First game up is Georgia at Mississippi State going to Stark Vegas this week. Sweets, who do you like in this one?
Stark Vegas. Georgia's a 7.5 point favorite in Stark Vegas. That line seems really low to me for some reason. I don't know why, because Georgia hasn't played all that well. They've been winning, but they haven't played all that well. Mississippi State has done a lot better than we've got. They got their first SEC win over the weekend, so good for them. At the end of the day, though, I think Georgia's just too much for these guys. Georgia is scoring 34 points a game. They're giving up 20. Mississippi State, by comparison, is scoring 27 a game and giving up 25. So Georgia runs the ball better. They pass the ball better. The one stat that Mississippi State does have better than Georgia here, and this is DMAC's favorite stat, is turnovers. Mississippi State is +4 in the turnover rate column, whereas Georgia is -2 for 90th in FBS. At the end of the day here, I think it doesn't matter. I think Georgia and Kirby, they keep finding ways to win. They're going to win this game as well. They're going to win 31-17. They'll cover, and they'll keep that playoff train on the tracks. Who do you got here, Kev?
Yeah, so man, I'll tell you the one thing that really stood out to me last week in the Georgia-Florida game is that Georgia's just not dominant. Now Georgia's going to win games, and they're very good. One of the probably top 10, 15 teams in the country. I don't believe they're top 5 anymore. They just don't win dominant matchups. And when you look at, like, they're losing Young at wide receivers hurt them, and I think their wide receivers drop back a little bit. Good running backs. Offensive line has been up and down this year. And then on the defensive line, they're not dominant on the defensive line either. I say all that to say this. They're one of the best coached teams in the country. Kirby finds a way to get a matchup in his favor, and they win games. And I think you'll see that same thing this week. I don't think they cover, though. I think they win this game 27-21. And I think Mississippi State covers the spread, and Mississippi State keeps playing competitive, and they're going to have moments in this game that they look like they can win. But Georgia just ekes this game out just like they do, getting ready for that Texas game next weekend, which, I say that this really is a trap game for them between Florida and Texas. Wouldn't surprise me if Mississippi State beats them, but I think Georgia will eke it out. DMAC, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, going to Starkville where the cowbells are, that's a tough place to play. We saw Tennessee struggle and have to win that game late in Starkville. Mississippi State got a little bit of confidence too last week, finally getting over that bridge of winning a game in the SEC. I do think Georgia wins this game, but I think it's going to come down to a late field goal for the Georgia Bulldogs. I think they win 27-24, but Mississippi State keeps it close until the very end in this one. So that brings us to a big game in Oxford, Mississippi this week. The Citadel traveling to face Lane Kiffin and the Rebel Black Bears this week. Kevin, who do you like in this one?
Well, there's no doubt who I like. This is an Ole Miss victory. This is going to be an Ole Miss win this game handily. Ole Miss, look, they've covered the last 2 weeks on the road. They were 5.5-point underdogs against Oklahoma and won by 8. Could have been a double-digit win. Won by 16 last weekend against South Carolina at home when they were a 12-point favorite. They're starting to play well on both sides of the ball. Defense is getting a little better. They're not going to be a dominant defense this year, but they're getting a little better, and their offense is really good. So I think, they'll play. They'll come out. They'll play. I see their offense. I see their starters being out of this game middle of the third quarter. Because let's talk for 2 seconds about Citadel. That's really all it's worth on this. Citadel's 4-5 on the year. They lost to Mercer 38-0. They lost to Western Carolina 45-38. Furman 24-14. That team is not going into Oxford and making any noise. So give me Ole Miss in this game, 45-3. What's your thoughts there, D-Mac?
Yeah, Citadel's coming off a big win against Virginia Military Institute. Yeah, they'd lost two straight going into that one, so they do have some things rolling. Their leading passer though only has 544 yards on the season, which he's only started the last couple games for them. I can't go against Winnidad in this one. I think Ole Miss wins big. I think they pitch a shutout, and Pete Golding, you know, keeps that defense looking good, and they give up no points. I'm gonna go 52-0 for the Rebels this week, and I'm with you. I think early third quarter, you get to see Austin Simmons play a little quarterback this week. Who do you have, Sweets?
Yeah, this is going to be a bloodletting. I got Ole Miss. I'm going to go 59. I'm gonna go 59-7. I'm gonna give Citadel maybe perhaps a defensive touchdown late in the game or something. Austin Simmons comes in and does his best Garrett Nussmeier's a freshman impersonation and throws one to one of their linebackers as he's falling backwards and they run it back for a touchdown. So give me Ole Miss 59-7 here. It's going to be, they could score more if they want to, but I think that Lane just wants to keep everybody healthy. Keep the train on the tracks. Where does that take us next, D-Mac?
Yeah, it takes us to Texas A&M traveling to Columbia, Missouri for a game at Missouri this week. Texas A&M is a 6.5 point favorite in this one, so I'll get things started in this game. Missouri's offense is averaging 473 yards a game, good for 14th in the nation. And they're also scoring 35 points a game and running for 236, which puts them top 10 in rushing offense. Their defense has been solid all year. They did have a few cupcake games early in the season. They're only giving up 242 yards a game. They're only giving up 155 passing, 87 on the ground, and 17 points a game. All of those stats good for top 13 in the nation. And we flip over to the Texas A&M offense, 460 yards a game, 260 passing, 200 rushing, 37, almost 38 points a game. And then on defense, giving up 321 yards a game. They are giving up almost 24 points a game, though. Yeah, this is the third game in a row that Texas A&M's been on the road. So I expect Missouri to come out and start strong in this game. Yeah, you can have success against Texas A&M running the ball. So I think, Missouri's going to lead heavy on Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts in this game. Man, this Texas A&M offense, I think, is just going to be too much to contain. Marcel Reed has thrown for nearly 2,000 yards, 17 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. They've got KC Concepcion, Mario Craver catching the ball. They've also got KC, they're returning punts for them. Yeah, I really like this Texas A&M team. Everything about them really, except for how many penalties they get. They're averaging about 70 penalty yards a game. But their offense is firing on all cylinders. Both of these teams really like to control the time of possession, so that's going to be an interesting stat to monitor this game. But at the end of the day, I'm rolling with Texas A&M. I think this is going to be a 45-24 game. Once they get a little pressure and score a few times, we're going to see Missouri abandon the run game like they have the last few weeks. And that's just not a recipe for success for the Tigers. So Give me Texas A&M beating up on Tigers in back-to-back games in this one. And who do you have in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, so I do like the matchup for a couple of things to watch. So A&M has had times this year where they've given up rushing yards. And so I think you could see Roberts and Hardy have big games. And for Missouri to be successful, they really need their running game to be prominent, and they need to stick to it. Um, First half, LSU averaged 7 yards a carry against A&M's defense. So you can run the ball on Texas A&M, and you definitely don't want freshman quarterback playing Matt Zoller. You definitely don't want him dropping back a lot against Cassius Howell, who is the best pass rusher in the SEC. So, to me, those are the interesting parts of the game and how the game matches up. I agree with you that A&M is really good offensively, and Colin Klein's one of the best play callers in the country. Missouri's got a good defense. But Colin Klein is really doing some really good things with Marcel Reed in that passing game and the way they're mixing the plays up. They moved Concepcion around a lot. We were really wanted to watch that matchup between him and Delane in that LSU game. Well, they moved Concepcion around so much from slot to different outside positions, and you just really you got to pay attention to where he's at, and they make it really hard. Klein does, and then he mixes things in. I think that's going to be the difference, and I just think Zoller's going to struggle enough that A&M will pull away. I think A&M wins this game by 13. Give me 34. Not, yeah, 30. Well, let me go 17. 34-17. I just think Missouri will move the ball running, but I don't see him scoring with a freshman quarterback with the pass rush that he's going to face. Sweet, your thoughts?
I got Texas A&M winning 38-24. I think at the end of the day, it's close in the first half, but I think Zollers makes a couple freshman mistakes. I also think Texas A&M's line just wears Missouri's defensive line down. That Texas A&M offensive line is as good as there is in the country. And while Mizzou's got a strong defensive line, they don't match up with A&M here. So give me the Aggies by 14 here. Where do we go next, D-Mac?
Yeah, that takes us to Auburn Vandy. This is a game that opened at 7.5 and is now down to 6.5. So, Sweets, want to get us started on this one?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the 7.5 to 6.5 would really be big if Hugh Freeze was coaching the game because of the one score deal, but he's not coaching the game, so we don't have to worry about that. I like Vanderbilt to win this game by 14 plus. I think Vanderbilt still has a lot to play for. I think Clark Lee's going to get him back on track. I think Pavia is going to get him rolling, and this is where it started last year. Remember, they went into Auburn or they beat Auburn, which got them going last year. So, which made Pavia the king of Alabama. So, I like Vanderbilt to win this game by 14 or so. I think that that they're just too much offensively. I think that Auburn has no consistency on offense. At quarterback, their running game. Jeremiah Cobb has been decent, but after that, it falls off. And I just think that program is just a big mess right now, and I think Vanderbilt's going to take advantage of it. What are your thoughts on this one, D-Mac?
Yeah, so I missed your score prediction there, Sweets. I was reading up on.
You're all good. You're all good. I'm gonna go Vandy. Vandy's gonna beat them 38-24, just like the Texas A&M game, 38-24.
Okay, cool. I want to see how Pavia comes out and responds to getting punched in the mouth by Texas last week. I know they were on the road and they're at home this week. So I want to see how he comes out and responds. I am not on, I think they are ranked, they're 16th in the college football playoff poll that came out tonight. So if they went out, I guess they have a chance. I don't like Vandy in this one. Auburn's really good at forcing turnovers. I think the Vandy offense and Diego Pavia may try to get too pretty at times here. DJ Durkin, really, this defense has rallied around him this week. They've all kind of posted him on social media, how happy they are that he's their interim coach. Auburn's +7 in the turnover margin. Um, I don't know who's going to play quarterback for the Auburn Tigers this week, but I think Derek Nix gets some things figured out. I'm going to go with an upset on the road. Give me a 31-28 game for Auburn getting a win. And they show that they don't need Hugh Freeze. So who do you like in this one, Kevin?
And I tell you, after that pick, I don't even know if I can think. Auburn scored 30 points against Arkansas in that terrible defense with 3 interceptions. Me trying to wrap my head around them scoring 30 points at Vanderbilt, I just don't see that one. But hey, anything can happen. I'm trying to figure out who's going to play quarterback for Auburn myself. Probably all 3. I think probably they might start with Daniels and then go to Knight, and then after both of them fail, then they'll probably throw Jackson Arnold in there again. No, I think Vanderbilt still has a lot to play for, and the way that they played in that fourth quarter, making that game interesting, and Pavia, throwing for 365 in that game is where I think you're going to see Vandy go this week. So I think Auburn will try to do defensively what Alabama did and what Texas did for 2.5 quarters. Really stack the line on the running game and make Pavia beat you throwing the ball down the field. And that being said, I think you'll see Vandy try to go to that earlier this week than they did last week against Texas. I think they just waited too late for him to really open things up in that game. So Auburn's got a good defense. They'll contain the offense from Vandy. Vandy won't go up and down the field, but Vandy will score enough. Give me Vandy 27, Auburn in that outstanding offense. They have 10, and DMAC if they score 30 points, if Auburn scores 30 points, I might come fully dressed in an Auburn outfit next week, and I don't have one, so that means I'd have to go out and buy it because I don't see any way. Auburn might not score 30 points the rest of the season. They got to play Bama. They got to play Vandy. I don't know who they're going to score.
Well, that wasn't just offense for me. I think they could get a special teams and a defensive touchdown in this game. So that would be where half of their points come from in my mind.
All right, they could get a defensive touchdown. I agree with that.
And old Rayshon Pleasant can run a kickback at any time too.
That's true.
Can't count them out just yet. But that takes us to Florida, Kentucky. Who do you like in this one, Kevin?
So both these teams are 3-5, and you've got both teams fighting to get in a bowl game. Is the way that I look at this. Kentucky showed life. And at home they've been tough to beat. They played Texas tough at home in an ugly game. They played Ole Miss tough earlier in the year and really could have won that game at home when they played Ole Miss. So I think, coming out of the Florida-Georgia game, it's very easy for Florida to have a letdown in this game. Both teams are averaging 22 points a game offensively, so neither one of these teams is, again, going to light it up on offense. Kentucky's given up 26 while Florida's only given up 20. So you factor in the home field. I mean, both these teams are pretty darn even in this game, and Florida's a 3.5-point favorite. Even games, I like to look at, who's at home, turnover margin, those type of things, and then, quarterback play. So quarterback play, I would almost say Kentucky because Cutter Bowley's been playing better. Lagway is definitely the more talented guy, but we've not seen the best of DJ Lagway really the whole year. I guess the Texas game he played pretty good, and at times last week he played pretty good. But, man, he had a couple of guys last week, if he would have got the ball to him, that were wide open. They could have won that Georgia game. The controversial pass, did he catch it, did he not, shouldn't even been a consideration he underthrew that ball so bad. Going into this, before I talked about it, I thought I would probably pick Florida by a field goal. But the more that I think about it, going back to your Auburn game, and we'll talk about it with LSU, interim coaches in their first game usually show a big lift. So I can see maybe where you get a little bit of Auburn momentum there. But by the second game, that lift drops off. So I think Florida got that lift in that Georgia game and made that very competitive. I see that shine fading this week, especially since they didn't win last week. Give me Kentucky in a really, really, really ugly game again, 20-13. DMAC, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Cutter Bowley's playing really well right now. I don't know if he was playing well enough to be co-freshman of the week in the SEC this week. But he gives them a better chance to win than Zach Calzada did, and that's for sure. So I think another ugly game though. I've got Kentucky 17-10 in this one. Sweets, who do you like?
Well, I'm going to go opposite here. I'm going to take Florida. I'm going to take Florida 21, Kentucky 17. I think that Lagway and Florida will do just enough to beat Kentucky. I'm trying to look at these stats and just come up with something to hang my hat on for either team, but
they're ugly. And don't forget Dallas Wilson's out this game. They're ugly. Those stats, both of them negative.
We'll just move on to the next game.
I think we should.
Yeah, so that brings us to the LSU Alabama game. This will be LSU's first game with interim coach Frank Wilson at the helm for the Tigers, traveling over to Tuscaloosa to play an undefeated conference team in the Alabama Crimson Tide, who has not fallen since August of this year. So Bama's playing really good football. LSU sitting at 5-3, made a coaching change the day after the horrific loss to Texas A&M, where the LSU fans bailed out early, and Texas A&M took over the LSU student section. So, I'm not going to dive too much into the stats here. Bama is really good in the turnover margin at +9. I think for LSU to be successful in this game, they're going to have to run the ball. And Frank Wilson has made it clear that they plan to commit to the run game. That's where I think the Alabama defense is most vulnerable, is in their rush game. Maybe in the pass game some, now that they've got a defensive back who's suspended indefinitely from the team after a bye week incident. Let me see what the line is in this one. LSU's a 10.5-point
10.
dog. I think LSU covers this game. I think Bama ultimately wins, but you see a lot of fight out of LSU. I think you're going to see both Harlem Berry and Caden Durham have success in the run game, and I think that shortens the game a little bit. I'm going to go Bama 27, LSU 24, and what I think is going to be a close game. LSU finally has some things falling into place with a new president and a new AD being hired today. They've got a great interim coach in Frank Wilson, who the players seem to really rally around right now. So, if this was, 2 weeks ago and Brian Kelly was still the LSU coach, I'd probably have this as like a 52-17 game, if I'm being honest. But I think the things that are moving at LSU play into their hand here. So give me LSU or give me Bama in a 27-24 game. Who do you have in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, so I had another person that does podcasts ask me earlier, and I say that just because what I text him was some of the things that you just said. So I think you're going to see LSU play with more energy than they have in probably a month. I think you're going to see Harlem Berry and Durham a big part of this offense. The message that I sent him, I think Berry gets 100 and Durham gets about 70 yards. I think there's going to be an absolute emphasis on running the ball, which would shorten the game. Um, the questions that I have is with Weeks. I think if Weeks plays defensively, I think that helps LSU in the matchups. Bama has struggled running the ball, and I like the fact that LSU's secondary can contain Bama's passing game. Now, Bama's going to pass the ball some. Simpson's a really good quarterback. One interception on the year, 20 touchdowns, and they've got Bernard, Ryan Williams, Lotzler, the tight end, Cuevas. So they got plenty of guys that they can throw it to. The receiver from Miami, also number one that they have. So I don't think you shut down Bama's offense, but I like LSU's ability to contain it. Again, going back to that interim coach in game one and the team getting a lift and really playing well, I think you're going to see that. I think this LSU team will play with more energy than maybe any game since that Clemson game at the first of the year. And I do think you'll see a better balanced offense. I think Trey'Dez Green and Aaron Anderson play really well this week in the offense. I think you're just going to see a more focused offense using the best offensive players that LSU has: Anderson, Green, Berry, Durham, and that. I think Bama wins at 31-27 just because when I look at Bama's overall team, they're just a better team. And they're more consistent in what they've done during the year. And the turnover margin, that +9 in the turnover margin, I don't see, for LSU to win this game, they would have to, in my opinion, have to win that turnover margin 2-1, something like that. And I don't see that. But I do think you're going to see LSU play very well. And I think we'll probably see, their talent play maybe the best game they've played all year. I think there was a lot of frustration on this team with Kelly. And I think you'll see the team fight for each other and play with a lot more relaxed and passion. As Sweets, as you like to say, the dog in them. I think we'll see maybe more LSU dog in this game. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think LSU struggles against Alabama. I think if Weeks is out, I think Bama's going to gouge us up the middle, and that's what really concerns me. And I don't know, I haven't seen anything on Gooden. Have either of you guys heard an update on him? Is he 100% go or?
I think he's supposed to play this week.
Yeah, he played last week, so I would expect him to play.
Yeah, that's a big help in the middle, but missing Weeks, I think is really, that really softens up the middle of that LSU defense. I think Bama's got more to play for. I think LSU is going to show some fight and some spirit at the end of the day. I think Bama's just a better team. Go ahead and mark me down for Bama 31, LSU 20.
All right, so that wraps up our picks for the week. I know Thursday night we always break down an SEC game. I think the game we should break down, we'll just discuss it on here. I think we're going to break down the LSU Bama game in depth a little more this week.
I think it'd be a good game to break down. I think there's position matchups that favor both teams this week. I think it would be a good game to kind of look at it from a position breakdown.
Yeah. Any last minute thoughts before we wrap up, Kevin?
This is a week where we're going to see more teams. Again, we know the teams that are fighting for this playoff bid, and it's about teams trying to avoid an upset. We saw 4 last week. Vandy lost, Miami lost, and so the teams that are favorites, it's their time of year to go out and win. So again, Bama cannot lose to an LSU. Georgia cannot lose at Mississippi State. Those type of things. Texas has got to carry on and keep playing well and winning. So that's my thoughts about this week. It's not a lot of like stellar matchups, but the upset potential that is there, and will we see some of that? Again, I don't think it'll happen, but could a team like BYU knock off Tech, which would probably knock them out of the playoff contention? Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I think we're still missing Sweets at the moment. So I'll go ahead and give my final thoughts, and then I think we'll wrap it up tonight. Two non-SEC games that I'm really looking forward to this week. That's BYU, Texas Tech, and Oregon, Iowa. Both of those games have heavy playoff implications for both of these teams, or all four of these teams. So yeah, I'm going to be super tuned into both of those. I think, pretty good slate of college football this weekend overall. So, excited for those games, and then excited to watch the Tigers play Alabama Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. So, guys, that's it for Southern Sports Gumbo this week. We will be recording Thursday with our picks of the week. Last week I went 4 for 4. Both of my dogs and both of my favorites covered. So, you may want to tune into that one for some advice this week, whether it's what to do or what not to do. You'll take some key points there. Sweets, any final thoughts?
Nah. I just looking forward to another great week of football. These pretenders are starting to show themselves a little more each week. So hopefully a few more will play themselves out of contention this weekend, and hopefully we're back here on Sunday talking about Vanderbilt still being in the thick of it, and Pavia doing what Pavia does.
Awesome, guys. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, share our videos, and we'll